Tucker Carlson premiered his Twitter show. There's so many things to talk about it. There's so many things. The first thing is, before I went to air, he had 87.8 million views of his video. Do you know how long?
Wow.
Do you know how long it would take Chris Hayes to get 87 million views? It would probably take him about 5 or 6 months. Anyway, he got it in one video with one show. 87 million. I'm sure it's at 88 million now. Fox News screwed themselves. And legacy media is over. I think people are getting their news, are going to be getting their news from places like this and places like this. Did you see this, Kurt? Almost 88 million views he got on this already.
Oh, chilling, Jimmy.
That he could have that much speech?
He just is evil. That's what I think of Tucker Carlson. He must be. Why would he say this unless he's a madman?
That's almost a third of the country, right?
A third of the country's evil.
So I'm gonna play this for you, and we'll watch it together because it is stunning. This was the former #1 newsman in the world, and listen to how he just destroys the corporate news bullshit narrative. First about the Ukraine war, and then he goes on to just tell you about how they're lying to you, the news. And so let's watch it together because this is you want to see why Tucker Carlson crushed everybody. Here's why.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up.
You are not going to hear that.
Well, that's why he got all those views.
Okay, just so you know, someone's telling you what is an obvious truth, an obvious logical conclusion that you can't get on corporate-owned TV. Here we go.
Just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, He is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam. He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just too...
He's better off of Fox.
You are never going to get this kind of truth talk about Zelensky, Lindsey Graham, Ukraine, the war. You're never. This is unbelievable. He sounds like he... I don't want to pat myself too hard on the back, but it sounds like he's doing a Jimmy Dore show.
Yeah.
Good people, hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
Is it the best?
No,
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way. See, there's nothing dark here. Just two middle-aged guys celebrating the killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case, who cares if they are? It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
See? It's very easy to understand. It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory until it's finished, whatever it is, and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill. It's all self-evidently true. Doesn't need an explanation, and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is.
Yes.
In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft,
Did you see that?
as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth. In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word. So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control. When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US government has managed to classify more than 1 billion so-called public documents. So at this point, we can't possibly know what our leaders are doing. We're not allowed to know. By definition, that is not a democracy. Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing, and we're tired of it. As of today, we've come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets. We're told there are no gatekeepers here. If that turns out to be false, we'll leave. But in the meantime, we are grateful to be here. We'll be back with much more very soon.
So that was mind-blowing because I always thought that it would be someone like Jon Stewart giving that speech, or Stephen Colbert, or Bill Maher, or Keith Olbermann. I always thought it would be someone like that to give that speech, but it's not. They're the people he's lampooning. They're the people he's exposing as frauds, because they are. Tucker Carlson is giving the speech I always thought Jon Stewart would give. And reality is stranger than fiction. And Tucker Carlson turns out to be the #1 truth teller in America. And so suck on that. That's really happening. And, you know, I spent 10 years making fun of him and people of his political persuasion. And now, look at that. We've come to the same conclusion, that there's an oligarchy that controls you through censorship and the control of the flow of information.
And then ginning up like bullshit.
Yeah, and they have us talking about... So Chomsky was the one who taught us that the greatest way to... The distraction is the great way to undermine democracy. And that's what all this stuff is. That's why he said, you look at the front page of the New York Times, there's the Trump story, there's the 4 Ukraine stories, the Trump story, the trans story.
And the intel guy saying there's aliens that we have.
There's little...
that story should be, like, let's say it's not... The guy's credentials check out. So just based on that, you would think that would be in every goddamn media outlet. No, nothing.
He just destroyed the corporate media right there. That just destroyed their whole narrative. How could you? So the 88 million people who saw that, now when they turn on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, it's gonna be like a cartoon to them, because they know this is bullshit. They know what they've been told about the Nord Stream pipeline is bullshit. They know what they've been told about the entire Iraq war is bullshit. And they know that they're being distracted with these bullshit cultural issues away from the serious questions of economics and war and peace and life and death. And so That was and that's 88 as of now. I bet by the time you watch this video, it's going to be 90, 95, or 100 million people have watched it. So he just completely, what is happening right now is a complete rearrangement of the way Americans get news. That's what just happened. He got more views with that one video than MSNBC is going to get all goddamn month. So things and so up next, I'm going to show you how the corporate media is scrambling to try to discredit this.
Well, what are they going to go? Oh, did he say aliens? Because they do that, they're going to have to report on the thing he's reporting on.
They're trying to. So you can't believe the way they're trying to discredit it.
All right.
So we have a new sponsor, and it's Air Purifier. And if all air purifiers are the same, why did the U.S. Department of Defense select this one? It's called EnviroCleanse to protect and purify the air on board our Navy ships.
Answer me that.
So this is a super air cleaner thing, right? So it's got patented earth mineral technology, Kurt, plus hospital grade HEPA filters. So this is really filtering. And I've seen videos on YouTube. I went and looked up this product, and I've seen other people talk about that it not only will do a room, because we've been using it in the studio, and Misha noticed that the studio seems cleaner, the air is, but I've seen people use it in their whole house, and it says it works for the whole house. The woman said she had a 3,000 square foot house. She said it worked for that. So this has got a HEPA filter, and it's like hospital grade or military grade. And it says that this thing called the EnviroCleanse, it destroys cold and flu viruses, destroys COVID, allergy inflaming toxins, even mold, and more. That's what it says. So it's hospital grade technology. And they promise, I don't know how they can do this, but they're promising you're going to have fewer colds and flus. Far fewer colds and allergies and better sleep. They didn't say flu. They said this is their promise. Far fewer colds and allergies and better sleep. And they also free air quality monitor. Test the difference in your own home. Oh, did we get one of those? We should get one of those. So here's how you get one. You get a discount, and you can help support the show. These aren't cheap, by the way. They're
sounds like some high grade.
So it's big. It's big too, right? So we're gonna have a picture up here so people will see. So visit EK Pure. So the letter E, the letter K, and then Pure PURE.com. EK Pure, and use the code Jimmy. You get 10% off your EnviroCleanse home air purifying kit, and you get a free air quality monitor, plus fast free shipping. That's $150 in saving.
Wow. If I had only had that at my old apartment to get the ball smell out, I might have got my full deposit back.
So go to ekpure.com and use the code Jimmy. That's ekpure.com and use the promo code Jimmy, and you get 10% off. And I'm actually going to put this, I'm going to take it out of the studio, and I want to put it in my house, in my master bedroom, because every once in a while there's a little bit of a musty smell or something in there. I want to see how this does. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to report back. Now, it's already working in the studio. Misha has noticed a difference. And so we're going to do that. We're going to put it in our master bedroom, and we'll see what happens. Go to ekpure.com. Use the promo code Jimmy. Hey, everybody, only $10 to go see my new stand-up special, COVID Lies Are Funny, at jimmydore.com. And come see us do a live show. We're going to be in Cohoes, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Bakersfield, California, Baltimore, San Francisco, Huntington Beach, Rosemont, and Chicago, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and more. We're going to be in New York, Stamford, Connecticut, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, San Diego, everywhere. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all our tickets.